But, then the baby comes, 2019. Meanwhile, I'm working all the way up through this because I want short-term disability. We're in America. I don't get paid if I'm not there.
Yeah.
And, I needed, what was it, like 3/4 of my paycheck is what I would get.
Mm-hmm.
So for 12 weeks, if I had a C-section, I was already going to have a C-section. We already knew that. So I worked up until the day I gave birth, which was fine. They took my computer away from me and wheeled me back, and I had a baby. I also submitted my master's thesis that morning too.
Yeah. And
So
what do you think that changed? Because all this time that you were trying to conceive and trying to have a baby, and then you have your daughter, and the joy wasn't really there. Why do you think that was? Do you think that you would have had joy if you would have conceived by the fertility treatments?
no, no. I actually don't think there was going to be joy at all. It's a birth. It is a high stress moment.
Mm,
Um, Another thing, my mother was there, and that was not where she needed to be.
mm,
She did not make it a loving environment at all. She actually picked a fight with me. Um, yeah, but she said, "You are embarrassing me. You are crying. Do not act like this," when they're trying to stick the cannula in my arm and the nurse is digging for
yeah.
my vein. And I'm crying and I'm like, "This hurts. Give me the gas," because they have the nitrous gas that'll loop you up a little.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like yelling at her, "Stop digging." And my mom goes, "You need to behave yourself. This is a hospital. They don't want to hear you screaming like that. You're embarrassing me."
So she took that moment, she took that emotion right away from you again.
Right. Well, then after the birth, this is like, gosh, I swear, like a day later. I don't remember. I don't remember the birth. That is
Mm-hmm.
what it is. It's just I wasn't there. I
Yeah.
have zero recall of any of it. Um, but the day after, I don't know what it was, but my mother was sitting in the room and she was holding the baby, and she goes, "I just want to have a talk with you about something." And I go, "What's up?" Because remember, I'm like cut hip to hip,
Yeah.
not there, like. And she goes, "Well, your husband had a really snarky remark to me after you got wheeled back." And I was worried. And he said, "I look with my eyes and not with my hands." And I'm like, "Can we do this not now?" She goes,
Yeah.
"Well, I just want you to know what he said." And I go, "I'll talk to him." And she goes, "No, I don't want you to talk to him. I just want you to be aware
Mm.
of the kind of person you're married to." And I was like, "I am very aware." So, of course, I told him.
Yeah.
And he's like, "First of all, I wasn't talking to your mom at all. I was joking with a nurse. My husband is a clown.
Yeah.
Absolutely should be in the circus. This is the man I'm with. And he's perfect. And he's a sweet man. He has zero aggression in any part of his body. I am the aggressor. He is
Yeah.
not." um, so she really sullied
She
that.
took that moment from you.
Hmm.
And, that's one thing too that I want, as you are trying to figure out your enoughness, am I enough? What else do I need to be whole? I want you
Enough
to,
for her. How's that sound?
right. And I want you to figure out a way to stop allowing your mom to take your joy and to overshadow you, because that's all she's ever done.
We have put in some very clear boundaries around here.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she's pushing
Yeah.
right up against them.
But
And
you could put boundaries up. Husband can speak for you, and she doesn't come to the house at a certain time. I may not want to spend holidays with her, whatever the boundaries
I mean,
are.
she lives 3 states away
But
for a
she
reason.
lives in here.
Ouch. Yes.
Yeah. And so you can't get away from her. That's why I say that internal healing that you have to do is pivotal for you to live the rest of your life with joy
Hmm.
and with self acceptance and even with authenticity, with emotion, with feeling. That it's so important because she has ciphered so much away from you. And I think we talked about this when we did our overview too. I kind of believe that the reason that you haven't enjoyed motherhood is because of how you were mothered. and
Probably.
being afraid of failing your daughter or being afraid of not being good enough for your daughter.
Oh,
And,
absolutely. I
and
am
how
very
you
much
give her what you've never had.
right. I am very much stuck in the I must do this correctly.
Hmm.
What will the people think? First of all, what people?
Yeah,
Who's out there watching me parent?
yeah.
But also like, am I doing this right? Is this what the prescribed thing is that I need to do? And some of it is something that my mother basically took away from me. Like, for example, gosh, what was it? Definitely before Christmas, so probably early December. Um, Chloe had come out of her room before school and she was wearing these little cat ears. And I go,
Mhm.
Chloe, we're not wearing those to school. She goes, I want to. And I go, I need to talk to your teacher to make sure it's okay. She goes, well, I already talked and she said it was okay. And I go, girl, I need to talk to your teacher. I'm your mother, not
Mhm.
you. And she goes, okay. I go put him back. Let me talk to Miss Woods. And then tomorrow we can readdress it. And she goes, okay. She leaves, grabs her backpack, take her to school. Everything's fine. 6 hours later, I pick her up. She's wearing cat ears. And you're laughing, but it gets weirder. I go, hey, Chloe. And she goes, yeah, mom. I go, where'd you get them cat ears? She's like, oh, my backpack. I go, oh, so did we not have a talk this morning? She goes, yeah, but I figured I'd ask Miss Woods again for you. And she said it was fine. And I go, huh, did I not specifically tell you I needed to be the one to talk to Miss Woods, not you?
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah, but I did it for you. And I go, that's not what we're doing here. I am
Mm.
the parent, you are the child. I go, and then I thought, she needs a punishment. I don't just like, I don't know
Yeah.
because when I was a child, and this is where I go, I'm going to call your dad. She goes, you don't need to call him. He's out of town. We'll talk to him on Friday. And I'm like, little girl, she's like, he's at work right now. It's still before 5. This is a 5-year-old.
And that's what I'm wrapping my head around is the 5-year-old.
He's very smart, like spicy.
Yeah.
But I go, Chloe, I'm calling your dad. We're going to talk about this as a family. And she goes, I really don't want you to. And I'm like, well, I'm doing it anyway. And she's like, well, he's going to be mad. I'm like, I bet, because you didn't listen. Called him and he's on. And I go, Jack, I told him what happened. And he's like, okay, well, she needs a punishment. So I go, okay. He goes, what do you want to do? And I go, well, in my life, if I pulled this, I would be physically punished, which we don't do,
Mhm.
or this item would be taken away, never to be seen again,
Mhm.
which is a bit extreme. I go, or there's a consequence of being grounded from it for a specific length of time. He goes,
Yeah.
that's the correct answer. I'm like, okay, a month. And he goes, not correct answer.
Try a week, maybe
Yeah,
3
he goes,
days.
how about a week? How about just for Thanksgiving break or Christmas break and
Yeah.
then come back or whatever the month was? And I'm like, uh, that's only 5 days. And he goes, she's a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
So then it really pays to like, I have no concept of what a normal punishment is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll keep talking then. Will you? So basically, the punishment was never suitable for my age. And growing up, the punishments were always extreme. I grew up at some point without mirrors, without doors, without bedroom items. At one point, I had a pillow, a blanket, and a mattress. These aren't things that I would feel are appropriate to the child. I've had things taken away for months, years. And by the time you take a toy item away from a 5-year-old and you wait a year, they don't even play with that toy anymore. They're onto something new and better and more age appropriate for a 6-year-old. So, oh, you're back. There
Here
you
we
are.
are.
So, I mean, gauging what an appropriate response is
Mhm.
is half my battle. Um, I when I was pregnant with Chloe, I don't know if there's a pregnancy version of postpartum depression, but the last 3 months of my pregnancy were not great.
Yeah.
I had really severe depression and it caused a lot of problems. I did have to be lightly medicated, which my doctor said was totally safe for the baby. So then when I gave birth, the baby came and I had told them beforehand, I didn't get my morning medication because I was told don't take any meds this morning because I was having a cesarean.
Hmm.
They said, no problem. I go, hey, now that I'm awake, and I've had the baby. What about my meds? They're like, oh, you don't need those meds anymore. You've had the baby. I don't know if you know anything about depression
Yeah.
medication. Yeah, you don't just take them from
Yeah.
somebody,
You have to be weaned off of them. Yeah.
right? And the day of giving birth is not the day.
Yeah.
So I didn't get meds again for about 3 months because we were moving across country with an infant, with
Mm.
a newborn, essentially, because why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
So I didn't get meds the whole drive from Minnesota to Seattle with this infant. Um, and then I didn't get meds until I went to a doctor, and my husband went with me, which he never does. He's like, I want to talk to the doctor with you. And I'm like, that's weird, but okay. Um, and the doctor goes, how are things? And I'm like, they're fine. And my husband's like, nothing is fine.
Yeah.
So I was making, okay, I would never do this. I want to preface this, but I was making suicide jokes, like not the good jokes, um, for months.
Yeah.
Like, why don't I drive off the Puget Sound? Like, just boop, right over. And, at some point, like, it's funny, haha. But then at some point, my husband goes, this is no longer funny, haha.
Yeah.
Because now I am shocked when you come home because you're actually home and you're not running away.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not off the pier and you're not like taking your money from the paycheck you just got yesterday and disappearing
Yeah.
into a foreign country. Like that's how much I didn't want to be a mom.
Yeah.
And then there's the guilt. I wanted this baby so bad for years. And then the baby comes and she has a milk allergy, which didn't get discovered for the first
Hmm.
6 months. She can't have soy. That happened the first 6 months. She can't have breast milk. That happened day 2. So we're trying to figure this out. She's screaming nonstop.
Mm.
He's working nights. I'm working days. You know, what are you gonna do? It damaged the bond I had with her somewhat because I would come home and the kid would at some point she's walking and she would like waddle up to me and I would just walk around her and go upstairs and go to bed.
Yeah.
So
Do you feel that you're starting to be able to create a bond with her now?
mhm. Just like the last probably 2 years,
Okay.
she still primarily goes to dad, but part of that is our routine. So for example, bedtime, like she goes, she gets her PJs on, she comes out, hands me her hairbrush, I brush her hair out, she's got long blonde hair,
Hmm.
and then she takes the hairbrush, puts it away, brushes her teeth, comes out, and she goes, all right, hugs mom, says I love you, good night, we give kisses, and then she goes, dad, carry me to my bed.
Okay.
And she gets carried to bed, tossed on the bed because she loves it, and she gets under the blankets, and then dad has to cuddle her.
Well, at least we can say that she knows what she wants, right?
She's very demanding. Very demanding.
And a demanding child, when you are surviving your own trauma, when you are surviving your own having to, in a sense, raise yourself, in a sense, when you have that child, you tend to treat that child a little older than what they are. And that is something that can backfire in the
Mhm.
long run. And so I think what I'm saying is that if you find yourself doing that, maybe now that you are aware and that you kind of see what you do, maybe try not to do that. Try not to talk to her as if she is on your level, but come down to her level, making her realize the level that she's really on. Because right now she really feels like she's in control.
She's that other wife in the house, and we're not doing that.
Yeah, she's the other woman. She's the main woman.
Right. She's always going to be the main one for us, but she's she's learning.
Yeah.
We are having some hard lessons here, um, for all of us. But again, my husband wasn't even raised in a good household. He ended up getting taken away. So
Oh,
these are two people who had really bad trauma who now make a kid, and we're just on edge trying to make sure that we don't mess her up
Yeah.
in the same way that we were messed up. And we see therapists. We had a child therapist before we left the last state we lived in. And it wasn't because there was anything wrong with the child, it was us. We
Yeah.
were like, this is what happened this week. Is this the appropriate response? We're trying to gauge what's good and like curtail, like dial back what maybe we could make improvements on.
Yeah.
Like I am orchestrating literally my life
Yeah.
with this. You know, actually, a friend of mine was just texting me about something that we were talking about. You know, my best conversations about my trauma happen at like between the hours of midnight and 2 a.m. while Jack's snoring and I'm texting my friend.
Yeah.
Like, about, guess what happened now?
But I'm
And
glad
like,
that you have an outlet to talk about it, though. You know, but that aspect of processing it to really heal through it, that's a whole nother ball game. Whole nother ball game.
that's why I had an in-depth 3-hour therapy session on Monday with my therapist. And it all revolved around that topic.
Yeah.
Just my mother. And, that when growing up, if you grow up in a trauma household, at some point you realize that it was all not as it seems. And most people notice that in their really early 20s.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like 35. So just the last few years.
Yeah.
And it's not that I believed everything was great. It was just, why would you not trust the person that raised you? And realizing that this person is not a responsible adult and that their actions were harmful and that this is why I am the way I am, type thing with this. The last couple of years is when we've been putting in firm boundaries. Even just the last time Chloe went to visit grandma, we had told her before, we're really not comfortable with her seeing the neighbors. Your neighbors. We don't like your neighbors. They're alcoholics.
Interesting. Do you find that Chloe is picking up any bad habits or bad attitudes from mom?
No, because we tell Chloe, maybe we shouldn't do this. If anything is wrong or different at grandma's house or anywhere you're at, you can tell us. If you are around people you don't want to be near, because she has no problem telling people, I don't want to be here.
Okay.
Not to say she makes all the decisions, but Chloe has anxiety. I don't know where it came from, but she does. She doesn't like large crowds.
Okay.
She doesn't like loud people. She has headphones she has at school that are specific for her to use when she's getting too overwhelmed, and they work. So when she's at grandma's house and the neighbors are loud and rowdy, she doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And I told my mom I don't really want her around them. I don't want her around the adults drinking or partying or anything. She goes, well, they're not like that. And then instead of saying, okay, which is the correct response, it was excuse after excuse after excuse and reasoning. And I said, I'm just not comfortable with it. I know you like them. I am not a fan. I need Chloe to be safe. Don't do it.
So does mom hang around them?
Yeah, they're friends.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then it went into, but they bought her Christmas gifts. And I go, you don't buy your way to my child.
Yeah.
Because that's how I was raised. And what happens when you do that is you turn into a teenager or an early 20s who somebody gave me something I must do for them.
Yep.
And that could bleed into romantic relationships.
Yep.
A lot. Business relationships where you're now working more because you're grateful. The romantic one is the one I really am worried about because I had that upbringing where somebody gave you gifts, you must be.
Yeah. Your worth and your value is associated with something of monetary value or material value. And that's where you lose yourself. Do you want me for me or do you want me for, what do you want me for? Are you buying me so I can do what you want me to do?
Which is not culturally, generationally what it was. I mean, there's that 70s and 80s generation. Well, your uncle says he missed you. Go sit on his lap. And when the child is uncomfortable, they don't want to do that. And you're making them do it because what will the other person think? What will the people around you think? It's just like the presents. If somebody brings you a present, am I now obligated to do things for them? Let's dial it up to a 16, 17, 18-year-old
Yeah.
in a room with a boy, and they had intentions of doing something. And now after kissing, we go, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
What does that turn into? It turns into, but that was your intentions, you promised.
Yeah.
And now you're promising away things that aren't meant to be promised away,
Yeah.
you know?
And
And that's
therefore it gets hard for you to say no. You don't think that saying
yeah,
no is appropriate.
correct. And unfortunately, it took me into my 20s to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because how dare I go back on what I want? I must continue to finish, you name it, that act, or, favors for people that at some point I don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like, it is what it is. I don't want my child to grow up thinking that she must do these things because somebody was nice to her.
Yeah.
So
Boundaries.
all that, yeah, right. And those are things I'm working on now. But all that to say, like, we made a phone call up to where grandma is with Chloe, and guess who was there?
All the neighbors.
Yep.
So have we taken that privilege away from grandma?
Chloe will not be going there anymore.
Yeah.
Grandma can come here. Grandma will be coming here in like March, April.
Oh,
We have a trip, and Chloe's not invited on the trip.
okay.
So grandma will stay here with Chloe and with the dog and the cat. We are many states away, so it's not like the neighbors can come here.
Yeah.
But, at some point the conversation, because there's no way she's ever going to see this, the conversation turns into her asking repeatedly and probably at some point inappropriately, when is she going to come to my house? And that is when we'll have to say, well, based on your actions last time she was there, no.
Yeah. And
You're going to have to.
and as I said before, not giving her that power to overshadow and even irritate you to that extent. You may just want to tell her now, unless it's going to pose a problem for her to come and sit with Chloe while you guys go on vacation. Then I understand strategy.
Well, there it is. That
Yeah.
is exactly
So
what it is.
strategy, but getting ahead of it and telling her this is why, she will not be coming anymore, because instead of allowing her to pester you and get kind of vulgar with you or what have you, nip it in the bud, and then see how much that she really cherishes Chloe to do the right thing, to either come and sit with her with you guys, or to finally put Chloe first instead of herself, as she never put you first instead of herself.
The putting Chloe first, doing the nice things for Chloe but never for me, really was a mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know the word I'm using.
Yeah.
It was hard because I would look at Chloe and she's getting all the things, everything she wants.
Yeah.
Loving hugs, kisses from grandma, and that was great. And then I'm just like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
And this is something I address with my therapist. I go, at what point did I go bad? And she goes, what do you mean? And I go, well, still to this day, Mom says, you were a difficult child. You were hard to deal with. You were a bad kid. You did horrible things that I did not approve of.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd go through like the list, and it was, was it good? No. But was it anything outside of the ordinary behavior of a child of whatever age these things were happening? I wouldn't say so. Like my mother, like marijuana smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the early 2000s, you don't do it unless you're a bad kid. But did I? Yeah, absolutely. And it was just one of those rites of passage in my mind. Like, yeah, you smoke the marijuana with your friends.
Yeah.
And then you get in trouble at home. But the trouble was so extreme. And she'd use that and say, you were a bad kid. You did bad things. And I told my therapist this, and she goes, do you not think that this is the exact same behavior that every child experiences at some point? And I go, well, yeah, but they're bad. And she goes, they're children.
Yeah.
And my mom says I went bad at about 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
And in unpacking this with my therapist, she goes, do you know what happens at about that age? I go, what? She goes, it's when they start getting their own personality and pushing back.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, so you going bad is just you pushing back.
Yeah.
Which is a normal childhood development thing.
But it's also From the time, I believe, I would hate to put this out there and be wrong, but there's an executive functioning that happens, and there is a theory called the theory of mind. And from the time you are 0 until, I want to say, 8 years old or so, that's when you are starting to shape the world according to what you see. And according to what you see in the household, according to how your parents are having you to perceive the people who are around you, so to speak. And this is the time where you're starting to pick up on things. You're starting to have different sensory understandings. You know, this person that I'm looking at, are they upset with me? Are they sad? Are they mad? Are they joking with me? Are they lying to me? Do I take them serious? Like, all of these different functions start to happen. But things, the way that mom was all the way from 0 to 4 years old, and you are now 5 starting to develop your own personality, you were reacting to what you had already been seeing.
Hmm.
And so, quite naturally, you were going, with you being who you are innately, of course, you're going to start to push back because something's not right. And you were able to realize something's not right. And when something
Right.
is not right, you being a child, Chloe being 5 years old, hey, I'm going to speak about it, right? I'm going to lift my voice because I haven't been being listened to anyway,
Right.
or, on Chloe's, with Chloe, Chloe's like, I don't know how much in control my mom really is. So I'm just going to test her until,
That kid of mine, funny, I was told my husband, I go, I don't know why she thinks this is a negotiation. There are no hostages in this house for her to negotiate for, nor is she at a Middle Eastern bazaar trying to sell, spices. Like, what are we doing here, kid? Because she's like, can I have a piece of candy after dinner? How about before dinner? How about after? Okay.
mhm.
Can I have two? No. She goes, how about three? And I'm like, no. She goes, okay, two. Like, no.
Yeah,
She's like wheeling and dealing. She's going to be a great used car
yeah,
salesman one day, but like working around that. And I know she's developing, so it's kind of funny in the background now
yeah,
to see it happening. But it makes me wonder, at what point does Chloe go bad in the eyes of mother?
yeah. And the thing is that Chloe doesn't go bad. Chloe is
Opinionated.
She is very opinionated, but the relationship and the bond that she has with you, the way that she is with you, um, is because of her interactions with you. And kids really do pick up on feeling. They pick up on energy. They pick up on a lot of things. And she could feel that resentment that you hold towards her,
Hmm.
and she feels these certain things from you. And in a sense, she's really kind of trying to test you. How much does my mommy love me?
Hmm.
How much can I get away with? How much does she care to stop me? And so she's pushing her boundaries because, and I know this is going to sound a little weird, but she's pushing her boundaries because she wants you to show up for her in a different
Hmm.
way and more. And you have to take that stance to set that boundary of not arguing back and forth with her, but letting her know who you are and where you stand. And we're not having a discussion. If you have any more to say, I want you to go to your room. And even though she is 5 years old, she's smart, she's intelligent. And so she knows how to kind of maneuver through things. Even though she's 5 years old, you have to set that hard boundary with her so she can start to know and respect what the hierarchy is when it comes to
Hmm.
you and her. So she's not going to like it. She may throw a little fit. She may have something to say, but the more that you exercise it on her, the more she'll understand that you're not playing with her. And that is hard stops.
The fits are very dramatic.
Hmm.
And it's just, "Oh, off to your room, please. If you're going to," she literally does this, collapses on the floor.
Damsel in distress.
And you just like, she's done it right here. I'm in the living room. I'm just, huh. Well, when you're done, go to your room.
Yeah.
Or I'm on the phone, go do it in your room.
Yeah.
And then she gets up and runs to her room
Yeah.
and tosses herself on the bed.
Yeah. And the way that you stop that or interject in that, do it right before she starts. If you're going to start that, go ahead and go to your room. Not after you get done in the middle. Go ahead and enjoy your fit in your room. Or if it comes to a point too, you may have to leave the entertainment yourself. So if she's in the living room acting up and she's throwing a fit, just take yourself out of the room. She doesn't have anyone to entertain anymore. So she may get louder because she wants that attention, but
She does.
Overall, I'm not going to entertain you. So even though kids, they go through their different levels of development and certain ages where you have to meet them where they're at, they still have an intelligent mind and they still have personality. And when my son was a baby, I knew how his temperament was going to be. Just as a mother, I knew how his temperament was going to be. And so you can gauge your involvement with your child according to that. But it's still pivotal for you to address your trauma, to address how you're coming about, how you're projecting, because that's the relationship that you will start to build.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want Chloe to get 9, 10, up to teenage years, and she is pressing your buttons and trying you in public, in stores, and things of that nature. And then you're going to feel like you lost control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I was raised in the house where appearance is everything.
Mm.
So on that appearance is everything note, this should show you how not great things were. Chloe would start crying in the grocery store. It's like a baby, like a toddler, totally normal. She wants to be out of the cart or something and she's upset. And if Jack and I are there, like, he'll go to address the baby and then he'll look up and I'm gone. Absolutely gone. I'm like, I don't know them. I am shopping for, look, a head of lettuce across the store.
Yeah.
And then the baby stops crying and he comes and finds me. He's like, seriously? And I'm like, I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
I go, what will the grocery store people think? He goes, why do you care? I'm like, I'm a bad mom. And he's like, no, you're not. I'm like, my baby cried in public. How dare I?
Well, and that's funny that you say that, because it's like, my baby cried in public. How dare I walk away from her?
How dare it cry? How dare I let my baby cry? Like, people, they look.
Yeah.
Like the kid cries and they're like,
yeah.
Like taking the infant on an airplane. Chloe has been on more flights than the average child. Oh, I had one flight out of LAX back to, I don't even know where, I think we were living in Seattle. I don't remember. But I'm not even kidding you. She would not go through security. And I go, I can't carry you through there. It's the x-ray thing, and I have a pacemaker. I can't go through there. Mm-hmm. And she threw a fit, and I was like, you need to walk. So I set her down, and I walked through the whoosh whoosh thing, not the metal detector, and she wouldn't move. And this little old lady who's holding her grandson, about the same age, she goes, can I pick up your kid and go through with both of the kids at the same time just to get you going? And I go, yes, please. She grabs my kid, picks her up, and Chloe looks at her like, who are you?
Yeah.
Comes through, hands me the baby, and I get everything and I go, and then the kid absolutely refuses to walk.
Yeah. But you see that right there, she will take authority and respect authority from someone else, but not you.
Correct.
In just that split of a second.
That particular day, she goes, no. And I go, let's go. No. And I go, okay. She threw herself on the ground and I go, I don't have time for this. Get up. And she said, no. So I grabbed her by the ankle and we went through LAX.
Yeah.
And it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I stopped about halfway and I go, are you getting up now? And she looks at me, and some little old lady, African-American lady, she just looks at her and goes, little girl, I hope you get up for your sake. Your mom is not messing around. And Chloe goes, from laying on the floor. Mm. And I go, fine. Grabbed her by the ankle and off we went.
Yeah.
She drugged that whole LAX. And I feel like that made me a bad mom. But I also, if I did not get on that flight, I'm now stuck in the airport with that child.
Yeah. And the difference would have been if that old lady would have told her to get up and didn't involve you in it, because now she's challenging Chloe's now she's challenging Chloe against you. Chloe already knows how to manipulate you. So she's like, you want to see? My mom is not going to do that. She's not, she's challenging you in these ways. What sort of one-on-one time do you spend with Chloe?
We go to parks occasionally.
Mhm.
We do homework. She gets homework she has to do, and I'll sit down and do that. It's more stressful for me than
Yeah.
her. Um, we just hang out a lot. A lot of the we don't do one-on-one time really. We do family time with all three of us.
Yeah. I would say that you guys need to establish some one-on-one time. Just that dialect of back and forth of mom and daughter, just really strengthening your bond and having natural conversations with her so that she can not always feel as if, so she doesn't feel that resentment, for one. And for two, so that she can feel that you really want to get to know her, that you're really trying to know her, that you really want a relationship with her, because she's crying for your attention in all the wrong ways. And that's what she really wants. But if you were to just, take her, even though the park, I would say, don't let that be one-on-one because she's already too familiar with it. But if you would say, still take her to the park, but something that you make personal for you guys, taking her, I don't know, even if you just do it in her room, have a little nail time with her, play dolls with her, and just where your patience is there, where you're really present, and you can build up to the time of where your patience may be, because maybe you only have the capacity of 15 minutes sometimes, of I can only do Chloe for 15 minutes. And when you do that, it just lets her know that you are taking the time, that you want to be around her, that you want to talk to her, that you are engaging with her, and her attitude towards you will start to shift.
One thing that the child psychologist did, it was the funniest thing, and she kind of looked at me weird, and then we kept going, but she goes, we're going to have one-on-one time, you and Chloe. We're going to do it for 10 minutes. You're going to sit here and I'm going to observe you guys playing and see how it goes. She, after, told me, she goes, the first thing you did was you looked for the directions.
Mm,
Like, you have special specific game and it has directions. I am the one pulling the directions going, okay, Chloe, you're doing it wrong. This is exactly how we have to do it. Look, it says right here.
yeah,
And she said, she goes, what are you doing? I'm like, it came with directions. It's telling you what you need to do. We need to follow them. And the therapist goes, that's fine, but she's a child. If she doesn't want to build the blocks in the exact directions, why are you forcing her? And I'm like, why are they giving guidance if it shouldn't be followed?
yeah. But that's that mom coming out of you. That's that your mom coming out of you for that perfection, for that, you're not doing this right. It has to be done in this way. You're not enough. And we don't
Right.
we don't realize the shadows that we're building in our children when we start to project what we were conditioned to believe about ourselves.
Right.
And so now little Chloe, she's already starting to have her shadow built, but she's young enough where you can kind of, you can get in there and revitalize this, so to speak.
Right.
But it takes patience. It takes you having patience with yourself. But I will honestly say that you will not be able to properly love Chloe the way that she needs you to until you start accepting and properly loving yourself.
And that is a tough one.
Yeah, because you can't embrace that little girl because you haven't embraced the little girl in you. And the part of that is that little girl in you, you're never going to get that back. So
Right.
making peace with that and saying, I am determined to give my daughter what I never had. I am determined to love her because she deserves it. Because really, the reason that I'm not giving it to her is because I'm fearful. It's because of what I lacked. It's because of what I don't understand. All of these things. It really just comes to fear.
Mm-hmm.
But when you
Absolutely.
think about how you grew up and who you grew up to be, even though you are a fabulous person, trying to accept that within yourself, Think about what it did to you. And then think about Chloe when she gets your age and everything she has to unpack because you couldn't show up for her.
Mhm. Absolutely. Every so often, my husband and I'll talk, and I go, I really like, we'll see a career on TV, and I'm like, I wanted to do that at one point, but I was discouraged and told don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like, what would I have been if I were better cultivated?
Yeah.
I guess is probably the best word to use in there. I'm not bad now. I have some positive things about
Yeah.
me, obviously, at this rate. Um, but what could I have been? But then on the flip side, if I didn't grow up exactly as how I did, and I didn't turn out exactly as how I am, would Chloe exist? Would I be married to my husband? Would I have these pets? Would I have this property? Would I have,
Yeah.
are all of those things connected?
Yeah.
Are they separate from each other to the point where they're not dependent on each other? If I were raised in a better household, would I still have these things?
Yeah.
Or would it be different?
I think that you would still have them. You would just know how to appreciate and take care of them because you know that the things that you have are they're good things. But
Hmm.
when you don't know how to properly have a relationship with them, then anyone can turn something good to something bad,
Right.
because I don't know how to take care of it. And
Right.
so I think you would still have it. Um, and I think that that's why I say mom overshadowing you and all of the negativity that she has just slapped upon you, you have the chance and the canvas to make your life exactly the way that you want it. You have the opportunity to build your life totally different than what mom said that you could have, said that you would be, showed you. And this is the bigger challenge of really making it happen, appreciating what you have and understanding that things could have went so much different. I mean, in the worst way.
Right. Right. And I keep holding on to that. Like it could be a lot worse than it
But it
is.
doesn't dismiss what you've already been through. That it doesn't dismiss that, but the things that you do have, the good things that you do have, cultivate and nurture
Hmm.
those things because despite of all the odds that were against you, you still have you still were able to accomplish and hold on, obtain, attain, maintain. We're trying to get you to maintain the goodness.
Right.
And that's where you realize when you start to really think in that way, you realize, like, mom, I'm not giving you any more of my time, my energy, my life, my brain, none of that. You have ruined me enough. And now
Hmm.
I get to separate myself from you and I get to live in my fullness, in my joy, in my authenticity. And I have to put you over here. I don't have room for you anymore. And that's a part of what that shadow work does because it shows you what to compartmentalize. It shows you where to put things at. And
Hmm.
it doesn't you bring it to the forefront, you accept it, you acknowledge it. Mom is toxic, mom is this, mom is that. How much of
Hmm.
this is feeding me? How much of this is hindering me? Pretty much all of it. But I know that we've taken some aspects out of that shaped you to be who you were. Those are who you are, and those are the things that we want to hold on to. The rest of it has to go to a different compartment. And the things that you learn from the bad things that are in the different compartment are the things that are your hard stops. That's where your boundaries come from. That's where your triggers come from. This is where I know that this comes from. So I need to respond to this and not react to it.
Building those boundaries has been the hardest part, because I could be triggered all day, every day, 24/7. And I have been essentially my whole
Yeah.
life. But, causing me strife all the time is not what I want.
Yeah.
So those boundaries are there, but in setting the boundaries, it is very stressful to set them
Yeah.
because I still have that internal dialogue of how dare I? I'm not supposed to do this. This isn't the natural way of doing things. Simply because not only do I see how other people do stuff, but how I was raised. I mean, everything was orchestrated
Yeah.
from the beginning. You will do certain things, and my I want to say how I've been doing this for a while, but another vessel ripped open. I went to a conference for medical stuff for my medical condition, and my actual pediatrician was there.
Mhm.
Um, and we talked, and I go, yeah, just like I couldn't do when I was a kid. And he goes, that wasn't my rule. And I'm like, really? It has nothing to do with my condition. He goes, no, that was your mother's rule. And she just decided to tell you that to control you.
Yeah.
But nobody spoke up. And here's the thing that I don't understand about child abuse. People see it.
Hmm.
You can see it happening out there. Probably, I don't know about less now, but you know.
Yeah.
Why back in the 80s and 90s, if there was child abuse, you saw it and you went, huh, that kid must have done something really messed up. And then you continue on your way.
Yeah.
Not, oh my gosh, we need to stop them from doing this activity to that child.
Yeah.
And it makes me look at my husband and go, people saw what was happening to me and happening to you, and nobody stopped them.
Hmm.
Nobody cared enough to stop. So does that mean I am not worth being cared for?
Yeah. Which feeds into that I'm not enough. I'm not
Correct.
worthy. I'm not valuable enough. I'm not worth protecting. I'm not worth
Correct.
saving. I'm not worth being safe. And so this even goes into the point of all the things that you do have now. Things are so good for you right now that you don't know how to accept it because you've never had it.
Right. Oh, I don't relax. There is no relaxing in my physical body.
Mm-hmm.
If I go on vacation, I love going on vacations. My husband and I like to travel. I'm taking work with me
Yeah.
because my whole worth is in my works. It always has been.
Yeah.
That's where my value is. So if I go on vacation, which is, generally speaking, if I'm working for somebody, it's included in my benefits package,
Yeah.
and I'm going on vacation. Well, what about when you're gone? Like, I'll still work while I'm gone.
Yeah.
Like, I've lectured from St. Kitts. I've filed death certificates from Germany. Like, these are all things that I'm out there having fun and enjoying my time, but I'm enjoying working poolside,
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Excuse me. With that being said, you're afraid to sit with yourself.
Oh yeah, if I'm quiet, what's going on up there?
And if you are on vacation, you have to enjoy yourself. You have to enjoy your husband. You have to enjoy the present. And you don't want to settle down, or you don't want your brain to settle down that much to actually be in that present. So you distract yourself.
Absolutely.
And so when we think about what we've been talking about previous, it's how much is that depriving your husband from you?
Mm-hmm.
And we even talked about this a little bit in our overview. The dynamic and the relationship that you and your husband have, if you wanted to go into that. But a lot of the hindrances and a lot of the ways that you aren't able to settle down and how things have transpired throughout the years, it causes a little separation. It causes a little distance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it spills over.
I don't think I've had I hate to call it a calm moment, but a moment where I'm just sitting quietly for an extended period of time for ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Unless I'm going to bed at night, which is about 2 a.m., I sleep. And when I sleep, I'm laying there, my brain's still doing work.
Yeah.
It's still like balancing a checkbook, planning my day, those kinds of things. I'm laying there working in bed. There isn't a break.
Yeah, and you're always in hyper arousal mode. You're always in some sort of stressful mode. And speaking of, because I have been guilty of that as well, speaking of people who have had heart issues, I've had a heart attack before, I've had heart surgery before, you have a pacemaker, the last thing we need to be is stressed. But we are
That's my baseline, though.
Huh?
That's my baseline, though.
Yeah, it's your normal, but that's why you don't know how to relax. That would be
when the physician asks, "Is everything fine?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And he's like, "Nothing is fine here."
Yeah, and that would be the equivalent of that guy finding you in the storage closet crying. that would be just as fearful. If you were to sit and be quiet and relax and be calm, that would probably scare you the first few times that you do it.
Because what comes in?
Yeah.
What goes on?
And how do I just be?
No.
Yeah.
I've never, I can sit and have my music going or
Hmm.
something, but, even then, if you stick me in silence, I don't know what's going to transpire in my mind.
And that's a
So,
scary place. The mind is the scary place because you can think a million and two different things in 2 minutes.
right,
All of them can be bad. you know
right,
all of the scenarios that we make up in our minds, all of the memories that we have, all of the the trying to make sense of the memories that we have, the things that we said, the things we should have said, why did I say, I mean, we can go on and on and on of what's in this brain, what's in this little compact area, can make us or break us, can give us
right.
life or can kill us.
So I almost need to be in that quiet space much longer than a 1 hour time frame. I would need hours to sit there because the first couple hours would be sent with me second guessing everything I've ever done,
Hmm.
questioning everything I've ever done, planning everything I'm going to do, evaluate. Like my brain is automatically going to do these things and plan ahead.
Yeah.
So if I'm in there for a day, maybe the last hour will be me just being quiet
Yeah.
in my mind.
Yeah, I'm now that I'm sitting here talking to you, and I think we may split this one up into two. I mean, like we've already done one half, and I think this is the second half. So I think we may end up splitting this in two, which is totally fine because I love the way that it's going. And I think that something that came up that I'm thinking is that maybe where do you guys live?
We're in Tennessee.
So you're in Tennessee. Do you plan on building in Tennessee?
Yeah.
Okay. So I am going to reach out to you because I would love to plan like a weekend with you, like a little weekend retreat.
Okay.
And I would be willing to come to Tennessee and find a spot. If we can find someone for Chloe, if husband is down to kind of watch her for the weekend so you can go away.
Always down to watch her for a weekend.
So if I can get you for a weekend and try to start to incorporate some of those quiet times for you, those quiet moments, a little bit of doing the work and talking the way that we are and just getting some things out. I wonder how, I think that would set you up for understanding why it's important, why that it's safe, that you are not going to fall into some deep hole and not come out, and just really in tune yourself with yourself. So that's something that is twirling around in my head, that I think may be really beneficial for you. And I would be willing to do that.
Okay.
So we'll chat more about that. Um, we had a lot of unearthing, right?
Yeah, I could be here all day. I can't because I have stuff to do, but yeah,
Yeah, we had a lot of unearthing. And I just thank you for being vulnerable and being, transparent about how you're feeling. And the first,
I can always be transparent. That's the weird part. I can tell
yeah,
everybody everything, but then the act of actually me doing the thing for me
yeah,
can happen.
yeah. It's not, it's not a, you just haven't been taught to do it. And usually
Mhm.
we have to teach ourselves how to do it. But when you are in a fight or flight always, when you are in survival mode always, you never stop to take care of yourself. There's little bits and pieces that you'll do, but you never stop because it's too scary. If I don't keep going, that means I'm going to stop. That means that I'm not going to exist. If I keep going, that means that, if I don't keep going, then that means that I'm never going to achieve whatever the conditioned part of me says that I should be.
Right. It's so weird because, like, with my high stress childhood and everything, it almost like geared me up to be a death care professional. And I say this because, like, I've been in funerals where somebody has died at the funeral in front of the casket before the funeral has even begun.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I have, somebody's doing CPR, somebody's moving things out of the way, I'm on the phone with 911, and then everything's done still before the funeral actually happens, and then I go on to have a funeral without any hitch,
Yeah.
as if nothing had happened. That whole trauma of watching somebody die, they got revived, but still, that is an experience that probably traumatized the average person standing
Yeah.
there. The boss comes up to me, she goes, "Are you okay?" And I go, "I'm fine. I have a funeral."
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody will know that anything bad happened until later, because this is my goal.
Yeah.
This is what's going on. This is the topic we are discussing, and it'll get done. But what does that do to me trauma wise? That means, like, I mean, some of my degrees are just absolutely ridiculous. A mass casualty master's degree.
Yeah.
Many dead people, you know? So I have that ability to be calm, cool, and collected in stressful situations, so much so that sometimes I don't even recognize stress.
Yeah.
Like I'm stressed, but I don't feel it.
Yeah.
Like
But
blood
you,
pressure.
but you do. You
I do.
internalize it. You internalize it entirely. And with you're used to putting on the mask, putting on the profession, putting on. But when it
Mhm.
comes to going within, like you're all kind of traumatized inside, but
Oh yeah,
like you said, it's easier for you to talk about it, but for you to sit with it and to acknowledge what it really did to you, talking about it and acknowledging it and allowing yourself to feel it is something totally different.
right. Like one thing, and I don't know if this is related at all. So, you go to your physician, they take your blood pressure and everything, and people who are stressed usually have really high blood pressure. Not me. I'm like 90 over 60 consistently. They have said we're gonna run some stress tests and see what happens. I'm running the treadmill.
Mhm.
Nothing changes. It goes up a little higher, but it's still well within low normal range.
Yeah.
And like they have monitored me with blood pressure and stuff, well, in high stress environments, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
It's just nothing. It's fine. I'm perfectly even across the board. And I was like, "Oh, is that a medical condition?" They're like, "No, you just don't have."
Look how good you've trained yourself.
Right. They'd like, "You just don't have the same stress response." I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "This isn't normal."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that. Like,
but the thing is that you don't have the stress response in that way, but internally your body does. And
right. The fight or flight in me is not doing what it needs to do at all.
but
There is,
I think it's because it's not the right thing. So I think if we were to dive more into the detail of childhood, detail of mom, I think that would trigger you. That would trigger you to probably a higher blood pressure.
oh, I think that might be the only thing that can upset
Yeah.
me, which is bizarre because there are so many things worse in my life than her
Mm-hmm.
and experiencing her. Like there's been times like we've had an interaction with my parents
Mm-hmm.
and I've hung up the phone. Like, oh, example, dropping my dad off at the airport after he visited here. And he left. He got up home to where they were. She picked him up and I tried to text him and it didn't go through. And so I texted her, I'm like, "Hey, did he make it home?" "Yeah, he made it home okay." I'm like, "Did he enjoy his time?" She was, "Yeah, he enjoyed it. Bye." Oh, I read into that. What did I do? What did he say? What happened? Like, apparently he did just enjoy being with
Yeah.
us. But me over analyzing, I cried for an hour and a half
Yeah.
because I did something wrong. I did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Nothing bad happened in the 3 days he was here. It was just,
Her response.
it was, he's fine. He enjoyed his time. Bye.
Yeah.
My mind didn't go to, it's 11 p.m. where they're at.
Yeah.
My mind went to, her response was not what it should have been.
Yeah.
If somebody enjoyed something, I must have done something wrong. And I can almost guarantee my blood pressure went sky high the whole time.
And
And
the thing about that is because you didn't ask the source. If you would have asked your dad, you would have had a different reaction because you would have been able to really gauge his enthusiasm or his response to it. But asking mom, she always takes you to 1,000, and she just,
She knows it. She knows
yeah.
it.
And then just hanging up like that, she knows you well enough to know that you weren't going to rest, that you were going to be thinking that. And that's that control. That's that control. That's why I asked too about how Chloe's demeanor is when she comes back from mom too.
It's interesting. She's fine, but she cries. She gets really upset. I don't want to leave grandma. I think I love grandma. I go, I know, but grandma lives there. But my mother also does this thing, like she amps Chloe up for going to her house.
Mhm.
That's like, you're going to come see grandma in 6 weeks. Chloe has zero concept of days, weeks, months. She's
Yeah.
learning, but concept of time is totally different to an adult. So we had to tell my mother, don't do that. Don't say anything because she's going to say tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And I will have to disappoint her every day.
Well, but the way that you combat that, since mom is that way, or just because Chloe is learning, get Chloe a calendar
Yep, we have one
and
now.
just
And
let her
every
mark
time
off
my
each
mother
day.
calls, we have to point out this is when you're going to see grandma.
Yeah.
Not soon, it's weeks.
Yeah. And get her, like, I mean, that's why I say make it interactive for her, make it fun for her. Get her her
Mhm.
own calendar that goes into her room, and let her put stickers on it each day. You know, let her mark it out. Let her make whatever she wants to do. Even now that grandma has to come to her now due to behavior. But even with that, if grandma is saying, you know, I'll be there in 3 weeks, just get her a little calendar, get her some stickers. Let's go, grandma will be here, and let's mark off a day. You know, make it fun for her, because the way that you grew up and the way that you had to really kind of get through life, get through your childhood, understand things, that's going to be the normal way that you feel that you need to do it for her. But
Right.
again, she's 5. Let's switch it around and give her what you didn't have and make it fun for her, because she is still owed her childhood as much as
Absolutely.
she can get.
Yep.
Because the
Yep.
worst thing that has ever happened to human beings, myself, yourself, whatever, is your childhood not being what it should have been. Your childhood being taken away too fast, or things going on in the environment that was just stripping you of being a child,
You. Mhm.
you know? Um, so yeah, so give that to her somehow, and spending time with her again. You know, that finding ways to spend time with her and building that bond. Um, because she will, if depending on how grandma is with her, she could easily start treating you the way grandma treated you, and that's going to be resentful.
My concern, I mean, treat me that way. That's horrible. But I mean, my concern is that my mother will one day go, Chloe turned bad just like you, and then start treating her that way. Because the moment that woman starts treating my child the way she treated me,
Mm-hmm.
we're done.
Yeah.
It's done. Don't. Like, hard stop
But
there.
usually,
But I don't want to get to that point. That's the thing.
yeah,
I want to cultivate their relationship too.
yeah, but that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to protect Chloe from that, from whatever she could put on her. But usually, when you have mothers that way and grandmothers that way, it's not really their aim to say to the granddaughter or grandson that now you're bad. It is more so, I have conditioned your mother.
Me, I parented her.
I have conditioned your mother to feel this way about herself. Now it is my job to make her feel even worse. And so now I'm going to turn you against her too. I'm going to make you feel the same way that I feel about her, so that you could treat her in this way and make her continue to feel that she's not a good mother. She's not good enough. She can't, all of these things. And it's something, like I said, psychological with your mom. Something's going on with her where it's like that.
I've always wanted to know the why. Why my childhood the way it was, why, and obviously it's something that happened to her as a child, but it was bad.
Yeah.
Why perpetuate? Why continue? What could I possibly provide to this woman that would say that this is what she needs to do. What is she looking for?
Yeah.
What does she want out of this whole thing?
Yeah. And that's something you may never be able to find.
Does she know
Yeah.
what she wants?
But with that too, a lot of times with my clients, I have my clients write letters. I'm big on clients writing letters. And I always tell them this letter is for you, not for them. Once we do our work and they get to a certain point where they're ready to give the letter, they understand that they are not in control of or responsible for their response or reaction, nor are they responsible for the way that they were treated or the person's character or the person in general. And so once they start to understand that, they can give that letter to that person and not hold their worth anymore to the response or to that person, if that makes sense. And all you can do, if you may never have the answers to your question, but all you could do is tell her how it impacted you and how it affected you.
I have tried that.
Mm-hmm. Did you do it verbally?
Yes.
Never. That's not going to work.
Never do that.
Not with a parent like that.
Because, and I hate to say, I shit you not, Carlise. You're remembering it wrong.
Yeah. Gaslighting. Mm-hmm.
My therapist has never diagnosed my mother with anything. She can't.
Yeah.
But my therapist said, everything you have told me, this is a narcissist.
Mm.
These behaviors are narcissistic behaviors. I don't know what caused it in your mother, but this is what it is. And she's never going to change. This is just her brain.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's why when you understand that, whatever the diagnosis could be, it's impossible for you to change. It's impossible for you to change her. And so when you write the letter to her, you're just telling her. She has to sit with it. And she can call you if she wants to, but she literally has to read it, not be able to interrupt you, not be able to contact you by phone until you're ready to talk to her. So she has to soak this all in.
I did that to my mother-in-law.
There you go.
You want to know what? We haven't spoken to them since. Because she sent a letter back and said, I am top mom in this family, little girl. And I'm like, I'm in like my late 20s. Yeah. She goes, all my children love me. Your husband, though, I don't know what his problem is. Stepson.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're going to need a third video if we continue.
Oh, okay.
I would love to hear about this one. So they did some really horrible things. And she continued to do them publicly on Facebook, directing it at us. So I sent a letter, and I got a letter back, and Jack called his dad, and they had it out on the phone. And I said, do not accuse anybody of anything, Jack. What you do is use I statements. When this happens, this is how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I feel this, so you're directing it at yourself. And he goes, okay, he did that. And his dad goes, your wife caused a problem. And Jack's like, how? Well, she attacked my wife. And Jack's like, the letter? And he goes, no, on Facebook. And I'm standing there watching this conversation on the phone. And I go, the funny thing is his wife, my mother-in-law, is live posting what's going on Facebook and making comments. And I showed Jack, and he goes, your wife is attacking her on Facebook. And he goes, no, she isn't. And Jack's like, I'm literally watching it in real time. She is posting it on Facebook on a play-by-play of what's going on.
Wow.
And this is why we don't want to talk. So broke off at that point because basically they got it handed to them.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to Chloe being born. Mind you, they told me Jack shouldn't have children. He didn't clean the toilet well when he was 12. He didn't do his chores as demanded.
And is dad in cahoots with stepmom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's my wife. We are a team. Okay. But when you treat a child that way, why are you on a team with a person who's abusing children?
Yeah.
But that's besides the point, because now we're adults. And then Chloe's born. And I I can see in my husband, he wants that dad. He wants that approval. He wants the man that made him that he looks identical to. The Dowers line is
Pretty strong.
identical. It's creepy.
Yeah.
Actually, Chloe looks like them.
Mhm.
Going back hundreds of years, it's the same face. And he calls his dad on Father's Day. They say Happy Father's Day to each other. It's very low key. And then he goes, I would love for you to meet my daughter. And his dad goes, okay. And he goes, but we want to do it in public. My wife is going to be there. She's the mother of the infant. Um, and we really don't want your wife to come around just yet. Not saying never, but we want to establish proper boundaries, proper support, and to make sure it's in a public place so nobody feels any particular way. Would you like to go out to lunch with us sometime in the next couple weeks? And I quote, if my wife cannot come, I am not coming. The man has never met his granddaughter out of his only son.
Really?
But I put that in Jack's hands. I said, Jack, I know you want this. He goes, I would love this. I don't think it's going to happen. I go, no. But if you are safe about it, but Chloe's still a baby at this rate. If he is open to meeting her, I am open to it. I don't want stepmom in just yet. And he goes, I agree.
Yeah.
So I said, if you feel the need that you want to introduce them to the baby, please do. He goes, okay. So that didn't happen. And I looked at him and I go, now I'm going to ask you a question. He goes, what? And I go, look at that child that you made and treat her the way they treated you at any point in your life. And it's like the bulb went off.
Yeah.
And he goes, I would never. And I go, do you want your child around them? And he goes, never.
Yeah.
I go, if at any time this changes, let me know and we can figure something out because I understand your needs as the son of this man.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I want you to think about your treatment and how you were treated.
Yeah.
And then realize that they could do that to your kid, which they've done to his sister's kid.
Yeah. And especially if he's not strong enough to create those boundaries with them.
He is now, but
Yeah.
I think he still yearned for that
validation.
That family.
Yeah.
Because his sister's got it.
Yeah. And that's why I say to Michaelene, the family that you guys have, what you guys have right now, it's your own. You guys have come from such adverse environments and people and the toxicity of the people. You guys have yourselves, you have Chloe, you have your own family.
Yep.
And you can make it exactly how you want it. You make your house a home inside and outside, you know, loving Chloe the way that you want her to be loved as a mother, as he wants to love her as a father. And you make everyone look foolish. You make everyone look stupid because no matter how much that they try to destroy the two of you together and individually, it didn't work.
Right.
But for them to have the power now still, no.
Right. They don't have the power anymore. My parents, unfortunately, are the last thing.
Yeah.
So.
And we don't use I statements. No.
Oh.
And, yes, it worked in school when you were learning. But for people like this, when you write these letters and when you address people, you have to hold them accountable because now is not the time for you to be passive aggressive or for you to take on any sort of responsibility that is not your own. You tell them what they did to you, you hold them accountable, and then you let it go. By the time you get to a point of writing a letter, you've already taken accountability for what was yours.
Okay.
That's it. That's all you have to do. When you get to writing that letter to them, you are pointing the finger at them for what they did to you, how they made you feel, how they treated you, the impact that it had on you. You give them back their responsibility. That's a way of separating yourself from that chaos, from that toxicity, from that way of life from that shadow, because that's the shadow that takes you over.
Then why did they teach us don't be accusatory?
Well,
What
because
is that about then?
I don't know, but it was wrong.
It was wrong. You tell them. You
It was
tell them
wrong.
what they did.
It was wrong. I mean, for a child to, I think when they were teaching us that, it was really for that person to get in touch with how they feel. You know, when you do this, I feel a certain way. When I don't like when you do this. I don't. That's making making the correspondence between the correlation. I'm sorry, between that feeling and that person, that environment or that experience and that person. But so that you can get used to, I don't like feeling like this. When you do this, this is how it makes me feel. This is how it makes me feel. This is how it makes me feel. Now that
That
we're,
lesson never made it to me, apparently.
yeah,
So, because I didn't get an option on how I felt, like these were happening, whether I felt like it or not.
yeah, but you couldn't express your feeling. You just had to suck it up.
Hmm.
And so now you have all these feelings that are like composites or deposits on you, and it's like little calcifications. And they're just,
God, the mantra I was told, you weren't put here to be comfortable.
oh, yeah,
So going to the doctors, having something wrong with me, being happy, that's not why I was put here on earth.
hmm,
I was put here to be productive.
yeah. Well,
Unpack that at 8.
yeah.
Like,
Mom needs some help.
or the best one, go fetch me my purse. Like, what's wrong with your legs, ma'am? Like, why do you think I had you? The only reason I wished for a sibling was so I didn't have to do it on
Yeah.
myself.
Did you ever have a sibling?
Living, no. My mother had a daughter before I was born who died at 3 months old
Oh,
in the early 80s. So I was born in 87. She would have been born in 83, I think.
okay.
When my mom was like 19, 18. So,
That has a lot to do with why your mom is the way she is.
mhm,
On top of whatever she was experiencing prior
mhm,
to all of that. And she probably had some resentment from
mhm.
daughter dying, and then here you come along. And I mean, it's so it when we say it out loud, you would think that it doesn't make sense. But
There's so many things in her behavior as I was a teenager that do make sense. I actually spoke about this with another family member who I do talk to, which, by the way, are few and far between because my mother has cut off so many.
yeah,
Um, but this one family member, I go, well, you know what my life was growing up, and we haven't spoken in a while. And she goes, I'm not surprised because after so and so's murder, she obviously, yeah, my mom's best friend was murdered.
mhm.
And then, like, 6 months later, her daughter died.
Oh wow,
So she's had a lot of trauma.
yeah,
But I wasn't allowed to do certain things as a teenager because my mother's best friend was murdered by a serial
yeah,
killer. I mean, I'm sure these things in her, she was an adult, but she was in her early 20s, late teens, early 20s. These are things that shape you.
yeah,
And she doesn't have, I don't know if she's ever addressed it.
yeah. And she probably hasn't, but I mean, unless she did it in her own way. But even with that being said, even though, because I understand mom having a leash on you and saying, no, my daughter's not, I would rather have this leash on her than to find her in a dumpster or in an alley dead.
Which is exactly what happened.
And so what would happen, she, her great intentions on taking care of you in that moment, they were great intentions, but the relationship that she had already built with you didn't make that feel good to you. It made it feel like it was another layer of controlling, another layer of of devaluing you, of not seeing you, of not
Sure.
hearing you. It
There
just
wasn't
made,
trust.
yeah. And so that's why I say that dialect that you have, even with Chloe, that relationship, that because when you're telling her good things that are for her, you want her to receive it in that way of, my mom loves me. My mom is caring for me. She wouldn't tell me anything wrong. She wouldn't tell me
Right.
anything to dismiss me or hinder me. She's telling me this in order to make sure that I'm safe.
Right. I mean, even down to it wasn't the controlling stuff when I was a child and when I was a teen. She would say it's to keep you safe, it's to keep you healthy and alive. And, you know, then there was, I think it was enmeshed with other things like, I can't trust you. And when that happened to be like, I don't want to say committed a crime. I didn't commit a crime. I just did something I wasn't supposed to do in the house.
Mm-hmm.
In her eyes, it could have been a crime,
Yeah.
but I did not do something I was supposed to, or I lied like children do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the punishment was something gets taken away from me, whether it's an outing, like say I was late to curfew or something. The punishment I feel needs to fit the crime.
Yeah.
But back then it was, you can never go out again. I can't trust you. And I go, well, when will you trust me again? She goes, when you prove it. And I go, how can I prove it to you?
Mm-hmm.
She goes, I don't know. I'll let you know when I figure it out. So years end up going by and I never leave the house again. I never go out.
Really? I mean, literally.
No, I mean, I go out, I go to school,
Yeah,
but
but no
I am
social.
now monitored. No, I am now monitored by my mother. If I have soccer practice, she goes. If I go to school, she watches me go into the building. And if I come out, she is to be called.
Okay. So pausing there,
Mhm.
we're using the late to curfew, late coming home from curfew. Back then, did you have a cell phone, pager, or anything that of that nature?
No, I didn't. I wasn't allowed to. But here's the thing: like curfew, it was usually like 8 o'clock, and it wasn't a curfew normal for that age category. But also, go before that, she would need to meet my friends. Sounds good. She would need to meet their parents. She wants to know where they live, what they do for work, what their contacts are, who like she wants to do like full blown background checks
Mm-hmm.
almost on people. And then she will determine if she likes them enough for me to be around them. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
In some point I understand, but also this is the parent of a child at my school. I'm not spending the night there, which we don't do overnights.
Yeah.
Safety thing, I am really adamant about that. We don't do overnights with other children, whether here or there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go down that path for various reasons. But, you know, if my child wants to be at the house, I will go in, I will see the house, I will shake their hands. I'm not going to investigate their rooms, which is absolutely something my parents would do.
Yeah. And it's because they didn't trust those people. And I know that even if they had a good reason that they should have.
But it was a blanket everybody.
Yeah. Well, but then we have to think about, I do believe that for your mom and probably for both of your parents too, it was a safety measure. And when you didn't come home on time for
10 minutes late.
10 minutes
10
late.
minutes late, Carly's.
Okay. And I get it. And I also get it from the aspect of a mother too, especially a mother who has had loss and grief in her life. And I won't even say grief, I'll say loss. Because that 10 minutes is when your child doesn't walk through that door or doesn't call you when they are supposed to. That 10 minutes is the scariest 10 minutes that you have because everything imaginable goes through your mind. Everything, because we understand that it's just a snap of a finger that something could have happened. And so I identify with her as a mother. At the same time, the not trusting you part is a lot of whatever her upbringing was too. So there was a lot that was just intertwined with mom.
Very much so. Some of it was really just weird. Like, I didn't have a cell phone. I wasn't to be trusted with a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can't get a hold of me, I should probably have a cell phone at some point. So eventually, when I was like, I think 19, end of my senior year of high school, I finally was allowed to have a cell phone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I graduated 2005.
Okay.
So cell phones existed. They were readily available throughout my high school career, not necessarily earlier, but they were there. I just wasn't allowed to have one because I couldn't be trusted. Because I never did anything with one before. She already knew I was going to do what she didn't want because
she
she
already
just
knew that boys were going to be calling and that you were going to be going back and forth with the boys. And that's why I say I think it was more so her distrust for others and not you. I don't think it had anything to do with you. She just knew all of the possibilities. And when
So she didn't trust that I couldn't be manipulated, but that was her own doing
yeah,
because she could manipulate.
yeah. And sometimes even like I said, how it intertwines too, I can't allow my daughter to be influenced by others that would take the influence that I have over her away. So
Mhm.
if others are in your head, you're getting ideas because at 5 years old, you were already a wayward child because you were thinking on your own, right? So don't let this happen as a teenager because now all of mom's control is gone.
Well, here's another one, and this adds just to the complexity of it. So when I was in like first or second grade, I was touched inappropriately by another child.
Mm-hmm.
And it was another first or second grader. You know, we're young
Mm-hmm.
girls. And here's the thing, and I actually remember this. The little girl said, "Let me do this." And I said, "No, you can't touch me there."
Mm-hmm.
She goes, "But we're going to have a party, and you can't come to the party unless you allow me to do this." And I, logically, as an adult, I know that this is not something of the child. This is something that an adult
Yeah.
did to said child. But back in the day, I was a child myself, and I said, "Well, I really want people to like me." She goes, "Well, if you want people to like you and you want to come to the party, you'll allow this." That's essentially the gist of it
Yeah.
in whatever age category that is. So I did. I let it go. And then there was no party.
Yeah.
So I told my mom. I didn't tell her because I was inappropriately touched. I told her because there was no freaking party. I was made promises and we keep our promises.
Yeah.
And this girl didn't follow through. She needs to be punished.
Yeah.
I remember my mother flipping out, and she wasn't flipping out over what happened. She was flipping out that I allowed it.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you let somebody do that? Have I not taught you better?
Yeah.
Why would you allow this? So I got sent to my room. I was punished for it.
And she didn't come and talk to you about the ramifications of this happening to you, the violation of this happening to you.
Oh, God, no. It was never spoken of again. She ended up calling school because I could hear her calling the school and ripping into them and calling the other parent.
Okay, so she did take it to that extent, which is good.
Mhm. But I still went to school with this girl. We were just kept apart.
Yeah.
And I don't think the child was malicious, obviously. She's the same age as me, and it was because something happened to her.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it wasn't spoken about because I had done wrong. I allowed it to happen and I should have stopped it. I knew better.
Yeah. Yeah. I think your mom did a lot of projecting and she did a lot of deflecting too, because all of that, putting it all on you to be your responsibility, but wanting to be manipulative, wanting to protect you. If she caused that much confusion in your head, just imagine what happened to her to cause the confusion in her.
Mm-hmm.
She was her own monster. And she just
Mm-hmm.
so happened to have a daughter that she could input all of this on.
Mm-hmm. This is going to sound an awful thing, but the best thing that happened to my mother was me to be born with a disability because then she was in command of everything.
Interesting.
Because if I were a normal child without any disability or anything,
Mm-hmm.
she would have no leg to stand on.
But your disability was your your heart defect?
There's a bunch of other genetic stuff that goes along with it from childhood. I was in and out of the hospital a lot. The heart is just one of them.
Okay.
So she had full control because she would use, "It's your medical condition. This is exactly why I have to be in control because if something happens and something happens out there in the world and I'm not there to fix it or save you, you die." So
Yeah.
go back to me being beat by her as a child with the belt, the buckle end of the belt. And then her holding me going, "You have bruises." And I go, "Yes, you hit me with the belt." She goes, "You cannot tell anybody that because if you are taken away, if school finds out and you are taken away and you go into the system, you will die.
Mm.
They won't know how to take care of you like I do. You will die."
Manipulation, fear.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
I had a fear of the state system. And a friend of mine, actually, she works for the state now as an adult, not this state or where I lived, but, she's like, she goes, "That is never how that works."
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I was like 8.
Yeah.
You know, how am I going to
How
know?
long did your mom physically abuse you? Was it throughout your whole childhood?
Oh, well into my teens, early 20s.
Early 20s?
Oh, yeah. I didn't move out till probably 21.
Okay.
And then even leaving, she still had control. I lived above a funeral home, but it had to be inspected by my parents to make sure I could move into it.
Where was your
And they had
dad during all of this?
the man that raised me. Oh, he was there. He's not my biological father. He adopted me. I love him dearly, but he was there.
But she
But
had
he
control over
also,
him too.
no, she still does. But he's also only like 17 years older than me.
Oh, okay.
So he was, when he came into the picture when I was like 5, he was 24, maybe
And your mom was how old?
4 or 5 years older than him.
Oh,
So she was in her late 20s. So
okay.
yeah, I mean, and he doesn't have children. I'm it,
Yeah.
you know. So he came in, and there's already this child there, and then there's the relationship with biological dad that was already causing an issue. And my mother, being my mother, did not hide me from these issues very well.
Yeah.
She would say, "Your dad's a piece of shit. He doesn't love you. This man loves you," which he does. He raised me. My dad was not in the picture. But then I have that questioning as an adult, now knowing my mom, is that really how it went?
Yeah.
Was I kept away from, or did he leave?
Yeah.
So much trauma. That man has now been dead since I was 19 years old, when I was still under my mother.
Yeah. Did you ever meet him as
I knew him up until he left, or was whatever. I saw him one other time when my sister, my older sister from him, got married. That was in 2001, right after 9/11,
Okay.
like the weekend of 9/11. So I remember that wedding, and I remember seeing him, and he didn't recognize me. I look identical to him. So it was weird. And I didn't speak to him. I didn't want to speak to him, but I had been programmed not to. And I was 12.
Yeah.
So, well, maybe 13. So that was it. Never spoke to him again. But then fast forward many years, I started reestablishing a relationship with my stepmother, his wife. And I don't know why it happened or what happened, but I started talking to her. Chloe was already born. And she flat out said, she goes, "I want to apologize for my behavior as a child." And I go, "Okay." She goes, "When you were little, your mother and I butted heads. Your dad really liked strong willed women with these volatile personalities. He has always married one. He made children with these types of women, your mother being one of them, me being another. And we would fight." I go, "I distinctly remember you guys fighting in a bar parking lot."
Wow.
And she goes, "Right." She goes, "I was not good." She goes, "I've been sober now for a couple years. I know your mother was sober for quite some time. And your dad was an alcoholic, just like we all were. Familial wise, it's coming for me.
Yeah.
Like, we come from a long line of alcoholics." So she goes, "I want to apologize for my behavior. We had two very volatile women who were displaying to you, a child, what not to do. And I hope you didn't absorb that." I'm like, "Oh, I absorbed the personality, hands down. But thank you for the apology."
Yeah.
And she goes, "I would love one day to meet your daughter." And I go, "We can do that." She goes, "You don't have to stay in my house. But if you ever are in the area," they were in Oklahoma,
Mm.
"feel free." And I go, "Let's build on this relationship and see what happens." So a year goes by, and we're talking like once a week. You know, I have a long drive home from work. It's going fine.
Mm-hmm.
And she's nice, and she's treating me as an adult. I'm asking her questions about things I know nothing about because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And you know, and then I get a call one day from her neighbor. It was really weird. And she
From
goes,
her neighbor?
my stepmom's neighbor in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And I didn't answer it because I don't know this number, and it's not her number. And I hadn't heard from her for a couple weeks. She leaves a message, "You need to call me back." And I call her back, and she goes, "Well, we need to talk." And I'm sitting at home on the couch. Jack's there, Chloe's there, running around as a little toddler. And she goes, "Well, Irene died." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Did the cancer come back?" And she goes, "Well, first you need to know there's provisions made in her will for you and Chloe, so we're going to have to deal with that." And I go, nice. That's rare. I didn't expect that. She didn't have to do that. And she goes, well, there's funds there. Not a lot, but it's
Yeah.
something to show that you had a relationship, and she knows you didn't get anything when your dad died.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's right. I didn't.
Yeah.
I'd already been adopted by the man who raised me. And she goes, but you need to know that it's going to be on the news. And Irene did not die in a good way. What does that mean? What's a bad way? I mean,
Yeah.
so my stepmother was murdered by her son on Mother's Day. So again, long line of alcoholics. She was sober. And in the state of Oklahoma, if you want to evict somebody from your home or serve them with any kind of papers, you have to do it at their place of domicile.
Mm.
And his written address was hers.
Oh, wow.
So he showed up one day. She served him with papers and said, I don't want you anywhere near me or my house while you are drinking. Here are the documents. He was drunk, got upset, and he left. Later that night, he came back and killed her. This was during COVID. He slit her throat, took her body, and dumped it out somewhere. So a couple days goes by. Meanwhile, nobody's heard from her. It's kind of weird. Where is she? Because it's COVID, she's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
The neighbor shows up. I haven't heard from your mom. Where's your mom? And he goes, I don't know. She left a couple days ago. I haven't seen her since. So she goes, that's really strange. Where'd she go? His story is she went to the Indian casino and was gambling and hasn't come back. He doesn't know where she is. So Indian gambling was closed. It was COVID.
Yeah.
Like, you're not gambling. So the police show up to do a welfare check. There's a drop of blood on his neck. And then they turn around and look in the back of the truck. There's blood in the back of the truck. Not a lot, but enough that you're like, that's weird.
Yeah.
So they ask him questions, and he goes, I don't know. Maybe I killed the bitch. Huh. Meanwhile, the police are there talking to him, asking him more questions, kind of trying to look beyond him, but he has the door only open so wide. Yeah, it's because there's a pile of blood in the kitchen. On the floor.
And he was just living in it. He didn't even, because this is days later, right?
Yeah, her body's gone. He's been slowly trying to clean up the mess, but he's an idiot. Like, he can't clean it up. So there's blood in the truck. And meanwhile, you hear the radio squawk in the back. Body found. It was her.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he gets arrested, and he's in prison now for the next 40 years.
Jeez. And how did you process that? Were you able to process her death?
Not really. It was weird. Like, I don't know what is a valid emotion for that, because my mom doesn't know I speak to her at this rate.
Yeah, but she was.
I had to make phone calls because small town people, I had to make the phone call and tell my mother, because if she didn't find out for me, she was going to find out.
Yeah.
It's not a large area I grew up in.
Yeah. And, the valid emotion for you just would have been because this woman who was at some point a mother figure, even though you didn't know her, that year that you guys were speaking, she treated you like a daughter. She gave you some validation that you never got from your mother. And then all of a sudden you got used to that, but then all of a sudden it got stripped away from you.
Mm-hmm. I felt robbed. I felt absolutely robbed by my stepbrother. How dare he take that, not just away from me, but away from Chloe. Chloe probably could have had a relationship with her for she was in her 70s, so a good 10, 15 years, There was no, unless cancer had come back to her, because she had breast cancer at one point, she could have lived another decade or more, at least. But in telling my mother, says unstable internet. That's weird. But in telling my mother about this, it almost brought her joy. She goes, oh, she died? Tell me more. I have to call everybody. I'm like, I really wish you wouldn't. I'm telling you this because you're going to find out anyway.
Yeah.
And I want you to know what happened because I got the phone call. Well, why would they call you? And I'm like, well, I'm a funeral director. And there's provisions in there for me. Well, why? Do you speak to her? And I go, no, I haven't. I don't ask questions. I have to lie to my mother.
Yeah.
Because if I don't lie to her and I tell her the truth about these things, it will make my life absolute hell.
You thought that it would. And that's just another way of her robbing you from your joy, robbing you from your experience.
Right. And some of it is I don't have the sticks to rub together at this point in my life to have those conversations with her. And I say this because she blows everything up. Even in everyday conversations with my mother,
Yeah.
I tell her A, and then she rapid fires questions at me so much that I either can't answer them or it causes so much anxiety.
Yeah.
But also, I don't feel that I need to tell her everything.
Well, you don't feel that you need to tell her everything because you don't feel that you have the freedom to. But
Right.
once you feel that you have the freedom to, and you understand that you have the freedom to, then yeah, there
Mhm.
are things that you can pick and choose not to tell her, but not, you're not telling her just because you're afraid of her response or her blowing up. That's a different, that's
Right.
a different aspect of it. But mom, that's why I say, you said that you don't have the sticks to rub together to have the conversation with her. That's why I say, write the letter.
Hmm.
Write the letter. Write the letter
I mean, even
is
things
enough. And
who I speak to in life, if she doesn't like them, she'll make it bad.
you're an
She makes
adult. If
right.
the people in your life are going to allow your mom to deter them from you, or to take away that bond or that relationship, then they don't need to be there.
Even like this is so, and it's such a little thing. It's funny actually, and my husband has heard it. Who is this commenting on you on Facebook? I don't know who. Well, and then she give a name. She goes, I don't know them, and I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
She goes, well, how do you know them? And I'm like, I do know them. That's why they're my friend on Facebook. She goes, well, why don't I know them? And I'm like, you don't know everybody I know.
Yeah.
You're not going to. I have a whole facet of my life that you know nothing
And
about.
you may have
She
to
goes, well,
block
that's the
mom.
problem.
You may have to
Right.
block her off of Facebook.
We're getting there. We're getting to that point. She's like, well, why wouldn't you tell me these things? Why are you like, I'm like, I don't have
Yeah.
to. Like, you don't need to know
And you
everything.
understanding that you're no longer a teenager that has to abide under her is it's but that comes with knowing that you can trust yourself, knowing that you can trust your intuition, knowing that you are separated from her. But that's a process.
These are work colleagues. You're not going to know my work
Yeah.
colleagues, you know?
Yeah. Well, Michaeline, it has
We have
been
been doing
real.
this. It has been a minute.
We are going to I'm definitely going to split this up in two, and I may like label this one as like a session with Michaeline, or
Oof,
something like that.
man. May I hope your guests that watch this go, God, she's successful and messed up. I can be anything.
The sky is the limit, right?
Right.
Because we all have a story to tell. We all have a story.
Right.
So I am going to split this up in two, and tell us a little bit of how can we get in touch with you, and what projects or goals do you have that we could look forward to?
Absolutely. So you can get in touch with me via email. It's hive@pollen.care. Or you can just go to pollen.care online and look at what my offerings are. Read a little bit more about me, about pollen, about what you can attain out of pollen. If you want a bespoke curated kit for pollen, there are options there, a form to fill out. Also, starting on February 1st, hopefully everything goes well to start on February 1st, you will be able to pick pre-done kits. You can go and see them now, but you'll see you can't quite click on them yet. It's still being built on the back end. If you know the situation that you have at hand and you see the books there and you know these would be very good for the child in my life, you will be able to click on them. It will come to me. I will package them up and send them to you right away. That gets rid of that curation fee that I have of $20 where I have to hand select stuff. So project wise, I'm going to conventions. I'm sending out notices to funeral homes, veterinary hospitals, places where children are going to be in need in grief situations. If you're a therapist out there and you have families that are going through divorce, I have divorce kits. If you have um, really hard topics to deal with, any type of death out there, any culture, if I don't already have the literature, I can find it. And these are suitable for children aged 0 to 18. Um, the information is out there. I've already found it for you, so you don't have to find it in your stressful situation.
Awesome. And all of that information that she just listed will be listed below in her bio. And you will have her contact information. You'll know how to get the curated packages. And anyone who is needing her services, needing her curated packages, just reach out to her. She has a lot of experience. She has a lot of heart. She has a lot of good to give you. And I just hope that you utilize her and tell them the states that you are licensed in.
I am a licensed funeral director in the state of California, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Indiana, North Carolina, and in about 2 weeks, Virginia. That's
Everywhere
10.
that you need her, she could be.
And I can advise on other states as long as I look up the law. It is not going to be word for word, but I can advise on best practices in other states.
Awesome. All right, Michaelene, thank you for coming in and speaking to me. I enjoyed you. Thank you for coming into the shadow box and just being transparent and being vulnerable, because these are the sorts of platforms that people need to know that everyone is going through something, and everyone has a story, and we don't know all the stories that are out there. But stories that you're sharing, people have been through that, but they sit through it in silence. And then because society says it's not norm, culture says it's not norm, family says we have to sweep this under the rug. But you just being transparent as you've been and being vulnerable is going to open up doors to a lot of people. The people that this needs to reach, both sections need to reach, it's going to reach them. And we trust that. And that's where you know that your services, that you are enough, that you're benefiting people, that you're impactful, that you are cherished, that people are going to remember you in the best ways. All these things that you have going on in your mind. That's why we have this, so that you can look back at this and see yourself and like, dang, look where I came from. Look how
Absolutely.
far I've come.
That is the goal.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for coming into the Shadow Box. I will see you next episode, and namaste.